got Hot Dog 2, and it's been 42 years practically at this point. So it has been 42 years because the film was released on January 13th, 1984. So we are now 42 years and we still never got Hot Dog 2, even though it was mentioned in the end of the film. So what?
Welcome to the Video Store Geek Podcast, where your friendly neighborhood world film geek Albert Valentine talks about films made and released during the golden age of the VHS era.
Hey everyone, it is that time of the month, or I should say the beginning of March here, sort of, and we are kicking things off as we go back to the top of the hill. I know that winter is just about done, so why not end the winter season with a winter movie of the olden age? And we're talking about Hot Dog the movie, released in 1984 and directed by Peter Markle and written by Mike Marvin, actually based on some of his actual experiences as a skier in the 70s. The film stars David Naughton, Patrick Hauser, Tracy N. Smith, John Patrick Reger, Frank Coppola, and of course Shannon Tweed. This came at a time when the teen comedies were becoming really relevant, and this was the 19, of course, this was the 80s. You had the exploitation factors of TNA, comedy, hijinks, and this all happens on the slopes. So let's get right into it and talk about Hot Dog the movie. So the hero of our story is Harkin Banks. He's from Idaho of all places, and he's going to a competition in Squaw Valley ski resorts. It's going to be like a freestyle world competition. And along the way, he meets this girl, Sunny, who is a 17-year-old runaway. She's about to turn 18, and she's played by Tracy N. Smith. And the only movie I can remember her from was Bachelor Party, released the same year, where she played one of Tawny Kitane's friends. The two hit it off, but they're forced to stay together in the same room, but they kind of have some qualms about each other. So, um, at first things are not great between them, but they slowly start to bond. And I think you know where this is going to be heading to eventually. But in the meantime, one day at a dinner, Harkin meets his idol, Austrian skier Rudy Garmisch, played by John Patrick Reger, who I will explain later, actually involved in some of the music in this movie. So I'll explain that. But anyway, Garmisch comes across as an arrogant, pompous ass, to say the least. And Sonny becomes totally rude to him, and Harkin realizes, this guy might not be such a great guy after all. He might be a good skier, but he's kind of an a-hole. Anyway, the two get to Squaw Valley, and that's when Harkin meets the Rat Pack. It's a band of freestyle skiers who don't like to follow the rules so much, and they're led by Dan O'Callahan, played by the one and only David Naughton of American Werewolf in London and Midnight Madness, among others. And the group includes Squirrel, played by Frank Coppola, Kendo Kamazaki Yamamoto, played by Jem Saito, Slasher, played by George Theobald, Fergie, played by Eric Watson, and Lynn Wheeland as Michelle. Now, here's an interesting fact. While this movie, of course, has big name actors, and a lot of them had ski doubles, Slasher and Michelle of the Rat Pack, George Theobald and Lynn Wheeland, were actual ski champions when this came out. So I thought that was pretty dope that they actually had some actual. It reminds me of Gleam in the Cube, where you had Christian Slater doubled, but then a lot of his buddies were played by actual skaters. So there's that whole shtick. Eventually, though, um, the competition starts, and it's clear that Rudy's the favorite to win because Dan discovers a little plot with the Squaw Valley owners who have known him for years that they're now caring only about TV ratings, and Rudy equals ratings. So Dan's kind of pissed. He kind of realizes that this is going to get rigged somehow. However, the competition heats up, and Harlan starts to become well known among the crowd. He starts to show off his flair, but because the judges are freaking corrupt, Rudy keeps winning the events. And eventually, this leads to a distinction between Harkin and Sonny when they get invited to the house of Sylvia, who's this really attractive skier that Dan kind of has a crush for, and is also Rudy's ex-girlfriend. And this leads to Sonny and Harkin straying from each other, if you will. Sonny ends up with Rudy for that one night, and Harkin ends up with Sylvia. Sylvia is played by, of course, by Shannon Tweed, who at that time was one of the biggest, and still is one of the best known um, penthouse pets, and of course is married to Kiss's Gene Simmons and has two kids with him to this day. But was a big icon in '90s erotic thrillers. So there's that as well. Anyway, eventually Sunny was planning to leave Squaw Valley, but she decides to stay and learn how to ski, probably because she felt bad about what she did, as Harkin did as well. So I think she tries to learn to ski as a way to win him back. And meanwhile, the competition's still going on. And of course, Rudy is still winning because, like I said, the judges are corrupt and they're rigging this damn event. Meanwhile, Harkin is starting to rise above the ranks, higher than people expected, higher than even he expected. And it all leads to this final tournament. Um, and what happens is, of course, Rudy is crowned the winner, and this causes the crowd, who are ticked off at the judges for rigging this competition practically. They throw snowballs at at the judges, excuse me, at the judges. Well, Dan, the Rat Pack, and Harkin realize and know what has happened. So they decide to settle the score. And it first starts with a snowball fight between the Austrians and the Rat Pack. And then finally, Dan challenges Rudy and the Rudettes to the Chinese downhill, which is the most dangerous hill, which is it's a race up on all these cliffs, no holds barred, anything goes. And he tells Rudy to bring the trophy because he believes that Harkin can win this thing, can win the Chinese downhill and prove to be the real winner. So you can guess where this is going to happen. Funny enough, at the end of the film, there is a mention of Hot Dog 2. We never got Hot Dog 2, and it's been 42 years practically at this point. So it has been 42 years because the film was released on January 13th, 1984. So we are now 42 years and we still never got Hot Dog 2, even though it was mentioned in the end of the film. So what exactly happened? Well, in 2015, according to TedandGravity.com, Mike Marvin actually was thinking about a remake of Hot Dog the film, Hot Dog the movie. He had been planning this with his wife at the time, and they figured they might be able to figure out a way to make this movie. Unfortunately, it never happened. Um, they had thought of remaking it in 2016, to have a 2016 start date, according to the site, and unfortunately, it never happened, sadly. But funny enough, we kind of got a Canadian-made loose remake of Hot Dog the movie in 1990, and it is one of my other favorite ski comedies of all time. And that movie is something called Ski School. If you remember right, Ski School, written and directed by Damian Lee, it practically is a loose remake of Hot Dog the movie. Because when it boils down to it, you have the same dynamics. Instead of the Austrians, you got the pompous instructors of the ski school, like they're supposed to be like the best team around. You got the Rat Pack in the form of Dave Marshak and his crew. You got the newcomer who joins the Rat Pack, or Dave's crew, in this case Johnny, played by Tom Bresnahan, who's making his way towards the competition. So yeah, virtually, if you watch Ski School, you're virtually watching a second coming of Hot Dog the movie. It's that you could even say this could be the real sequel or a reboot of Hot Dog the movie. The only difference is Ski School had a sequel in 1994. And I might be covering both Ski School films in one episode. I'm thinking about that. I'm not sure when yet, but it's going to be down the road. But in the meantime, if you're wondering how this whole project came about, Hot Dog the movie, it's because Mike Marvin grew up in Tahoe City, and he made a lot of several low-budget ski films in the 70s. And he had made basically, they're like little small documentaries. And producer Edward S. Feldman was impressed and wanted him to write a film about a comedy, basically about this, about the sport of skiing, make a ski comedy out of it, and that's what led to Hot Dog the movie. And what's funny enough is that years later, um, according to a 2016 retrospective article in Outside Magazine, it was criticized as a one-dimensional plot, use of sexist and racist stereotypes, and gratuitous nudity. What you have to realize is this was 1984. This was at a time when cancel culture was not even a concept. Yeah, there were people who got offended by crap, but in the long run, no one really gave a flying F about it. And that's the era I grew up in. I grew up in this era where it wasn't always about cancel culture. It's about making people laugh, and and Mike Marvin even emphasized that, this was what happened, and the stuff that happened, with the parties and all that, that actually did exist during competitions. And you probably hear the stories about what happens at Olympic Village when the Olympics are, when the games aren't going on. You've probably heard some crazy stories about the side of the Olympics where what do they do when they're not competing? It's no different than that, basically. So yeah, that's pretty much what's going on with Hot Dog the movie. It's, I had fun with it. This is a fun movie. I revisited just for this episode. And it's all there. This is the type of comedy I miss sometimes, this 80s teen comedy, but also have some excellent photography when it comes to the sports. And the soundtrack is a lot of fun too. The Duran Duran's Hungry Like the Wolf is played. Top of the Hill is a great theme song for the film. The cast was great. I never really saw I know Patrick Howser did a few more projects. I never really saw him in anything. This is probably the most relevant role he's ever done. Can't say enough about David Naughton. I love the guy. He's one of my favorite actors. And I mentioned earlier, Tracy N. Smith did Bachelor Party released that same year. Now, interesting enough, I did mention this. John Patrick Reger was involved in one of the songs. The Austrian victory song that they sing after they win the competition was actually written by him. And that's what I found quite interesting, that he actually wrote this um, pretty much the Austrian championship theme song in a way, and he wrote the song himself to sing with his Rudettes, and that was pretty cool that he had to do that. Um, yeah, but all the hijinks are there, and this is one of those 80s comedies that some people might feel it's outdated because of certain stereotypes, but this is one you can rewatch over and over again if you're into skiing. You don't even need to watch you can watch the stuff that happens in the competitions. They're a lot of fun to watch. And as I mentioned, if you've seen Ski School, you pretty much saw this is Ski School is pretty much a reboot of Hot Dog the movie. So, um, for this original film, it's getting an A minus for me, in terms of plot execution, story, cast. I'm gonna give Hot Dog the movie an A minus. This is a favorite of mine from the 80s. It's I think it's still available on Tubi right now. If it is, check it out. It also might be on Amazon Prime. It's definitely going to be on streamers somewhere. You can rent it. Or if, like I said, if it's on Tubi, you can watch it for free. And yes, that's with ads. I've been hearing people complain about the ads recently when all these old school cartoons came back on. And I'm like, guys, I grew up watching Saturday morning cartoons with ads. Deal with it. Okay. But anyway, sorry about that. Sorry to be off topic for a second there. But that's the end of Hot Dog the movie. I'm still trying to debate what's going to be the next episode because it will be recorded um before I go on a personal trip. It's a family thing going on in New York in mid-March, so I'm going to be recording the next episode. I'm just trying to figure out what movie I'm going to cover this time around. But that's it for Hot Dog the movie. Now, I want you all to listen to this because I want to try something different for some future episodes. And this is calling out to any actors, filmmakers, um, cinephiles. If you're a fan of films, if you're a total fan of films, anyone. What you could be a podcast host, you could be a YouTuber. I would like to personally invite you to join me on a future episode of the Video Store Geek podcast. You can even pick the movie, and I will watch it before we record, before we do our episode. The only thing I'm gonna ask is it has to be a film released between 60s to the 2000s during like when home video market was getting big. And of course I mentioned the 60s because we still had like some of the classics at the time, and then they would be re-released during the VHS era. So I am talking about that. I'm also going to count anything from Visual Vengeance, like these lost films that got remastered. I'm going to count those as well. But if you are a film fan and you have an idea for a film and you want to collaborate, I'm all for it. No call, nothing, you know, I'm not one of these entitled influencer types. I just want to talk movies. That's all this is about. You can now send me an email at Albert at indieworldcinema.com and just put in the subject line Video Store Geek Podcast. Bring your suggestions. If you see if I talk about if you're gonna see I'm talking about a film that you really want to get into or talk about and seen it, let me know. I'm all for it. I record these on Zoom, and then I do both the video on YouTube and I do an audio edition on Spotify. And this is every other Monday. I will tell you that. That's when these things will air. So our next episode will be on March 23rd. So yeah, if you're interested in collaborating and joining me on the Video Store Geek podcast, yeah, just shoot me an email and you'll see the link in the description on both platforms. So just look out for that. And yeah, let's do something this year. I mean, the solo stuff is fun, but it's even better when you're collaborating with someone who likes his films as much as you do and talking about some of your favorite films of the VHS era. So that's all I'm going to leave it with for today. And again, this is your indie film geek, excuse me, Albert Valentin signing out. And as always, stay awesome, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Thank you for listening to the Video Store Geek podcast. Don't forget to check out worldfilmgeek.com for the latest reviews, interviews, and news in the world of indie and global cinema. And see you on the next episode of the podcast. Stay awesome, film geeks.